Hello, Mixtresses and Mixters. This is Mixtress Ray. You're watching Mixtress video. So I wanted to do my monthly check-in for my online no-buy. I think Michael's making some synthesizer music in the background, if you can hear it. It's such a, 80s synthesizer music. Who says it like that? Me, deal with it. Okay, so yeah, this is gonna be just, regular rambly shit. I'm gonna talk about some books I've read this month. I'm gonna talk about some of my favorites, I guess. I'm gonna talk about how conceptually I've been handling the online no-buy. That's the general vibe. And as per usual, after I hit record, I decide I want to put something else in the shot. So, sure, why not? Okay, so overall, the online no-buy has not been a struggle yet. I think I have it set up pretty effectively. So I'll show you some of the things, some of the strategies that I've been doing. Like for example, I have a list of my rules, and then I'm keeping track of any online purchases that I do make that are within my exceptions. So for January, I added, I kind of added an exception the last week of December or something like that. I technically started this whole thing on the winter solstice. So it's, almost all of 2024. It's 51 weeks of 2024. But that first week back in 2023 was kind of a trial week. So I was still allowing myself to kind of nail down the rules in that last 10 days, I guess, of 2023. So I added another exception, which is that digital purchases, I can spend $25 a month. So for example, if I want to buy a Kindle book, or I want to rent a movie digitally or something like that. So digital purchases that I made in January, I paid for an Amazon TV series. It was like a limited 4-episode thing, and it cost $3.50. And I started donating to PBS this month. I just decided that was an important thing to do, and I used to do it a long time ago, but it's been years. So I set up a $5 monthly donation to PBS. So I counted that so I got nowhere near my $25 a month that I'm allowed to spend on digital purchases. And it's not like I want to spend that, it's just I can, because my logic was well, what if there are 2 Kindle books that I really want to buy in a month, and they're both $12, so there you go. And then the only other purchase that I made online in January was, obviously, we're still in January, but Aquarius season has started. And so I'm kind of doing this. I probably should have labeled this, instead of January, I should have labeled it Capricorn. Maybe I'll tape that over if I'm going to continue doing, I don't know, doesn't matter. Point is, the only other purchase I've made in January so far, at least as of this recording, the 21st, is I bought 2 books on Thrift Books, which that's one of my exceptions. I can buy from Thrift Books as much as I want to, as long as it doesn't become a problem, because it's not a problem for me as far as my shopping addiction behaviors. So yeah, I bought a couple books This was like a week ago. I haven't got them yet, but you know, it takes a while for thrift books. So as far as like success, I have succeeded in my first month of my no-buy. So that's great. Another thing that I put in, I'm keeping a wish list of like things that I really want to buy, but I can't buy because I'm doing an online no-buy. So I've only written one thing on the wish list so far. And you know, the idea with this is that this will be a way to keep track of things so that when I can buy things online again, what I'm mostly curious about is if I will even want any of them by the time I'm allowing myself to buy things online again, you know? Because I suspect most of them I will no longer want. Another thing I'm keeping track of is inventory. So this is something that like I won't be writing down again until the end of this year. But like at the very end of 2023, I counted all of my tarot decks, all my oracle decks, all of my incense, my perfumes, my body lotions, my lipsticks, my face moisturizers, my shoes, my purple pens, because I have a lot of purple pens, my journals, and my candles. And then I have more room here for other things that like I might want to keep track of. I'm also keeping track in my phone of my empties. And really I'm doing that in order to see at the end of the year, okay, how many body lotions did I actually use up in one year? How many, you know, which this is a way to keep track of that as well. And it's also just kind of fun. Like it feels like I'm accomplishing something when I empty something, you know? So that is something I'm keeping track of in my notes app on my phone. Yeah, just like philosophically, so far, it hasn't been hard. There's not been a time that I have felt. So for me, with shopping addiction stuff, you know, like I'll feel really desperate to get something and I will feel like I need to get it now or I will miss it, you know, FOMO, all of that stuff, all of the marketing techniques, all of the things that they want you to feel, all of the emotions. So far, I have not really had a moment where it was hard to say no to myself. So, you know, and I know that that's coming. I know that that will happen at some point. But I have managed to, I guess, keep myself busy this month. I've read 4 books already so far in 2024. Opening this again because I am keeping track of the books that I read in here. On January 5th, I finished a book, January 9th, January 15th, and January 16th, because I read 1 book in a day. So that's been really great because I've spent most of this month reading. I was sick most of the month as well, and there's been a death that really affected me this month. So I think probably a big part of the reason why my online no-buy hasn't felt challenging is because, you know, survival has been what's going on this month, you know? But also I think part of it is because I've been reading a lot. I've just been, I have like a bunch of books checked out from the library right now, and several of them are interlibrary loans, and you know, I'm just sort of following my interests instead of falling down rabbit holes on YouTube or online in general, I'm falling down rabbit holes with books. And that is a lot calmer for me, and that doesn't lead me to other behaviors that feel really like quick, you know what I mean? So I do want to talk about 2 books that I read so far in January. The Hacking of the American Mind and Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism. So I'll start with that one, I guess, because that's the one that I just finished a few days ago, and I went down like my obsession this month was cults. I read 2 books about specific cults. Those were the first 2 books I read this month. And this book, Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism, is really interesting because it's written by a linguist, and it's more about sort of the culture of cult language and the way that we speak to each other and the way that we, for lack of a better term, brainwash each other. And it was really interesting. It is available as an audiobook on Spotify, and I have it at my library, so you might have it at yours if you're interested. One of the biggest takeaways for me is a term called thought-terminating cliches. So this is stuff that like people use in regular everyday language, that like you hear it all the time. So stuff like, it is what it is, God works in mysterious ways, why don't you pray on it? Like things like that you'll hear people say. And it's not necessarily that people are being manipulative when they say it, but these are just phrases that people use to shut conversations down and shut down cognitive thinking. So like a manipulative person might be using those types of cliches on purpose, but we do it all the time to each other, And I just never heard that term before, a thought-terminating cliche. So I just thought it was interesting, and now I'm noticing it at more places. I really had this month, I don't know if this is not really the right term, but it kind of gets at what I was going through. I had sort of a crisis of faith this month, and I think I'm still in it. I really had a moment where I was like taking a step back from my life and looking at it, which this is a good time to pull out my card of the month, my personal card of the month, which I was going to pull this out beforehand, but of course I didn't. So let me find it. Watch, I've gone past it. No, there it is. Okay. So I did have this was my my personal card of January, or my personal card of Capricorn season, technically. So I really was taking a step back from my life and kind of looking at everything like, what has happened to me? Being in this sort of like, this space online of like, tarot YouTube, witchy YouTube, new agey stuff, all of that. I have really leaned into mystical and magical thinking in the last 5 years or so. And before that, I would have called myself an atheist. Although, like I've always read tarot, I've always, like had witchy practices since the 90s. Like it's a part of me, but for the most part, I would have identified as an atheist most of my life. But the last 5 years or so, I've really leaned into exploring the mystical and the magical. And that is a good thing. I'm not regretting that. but I realized that I was adopting a lot of other people's language as my own. And I just suddenly like had this moment like the first week or two of January where I was just like, it was really cold. I was sick. So I was off work, sitting by the fire. And just suddenly I was like, who am I? What do I believe? Do I even believe in anything? What has happened to my brain? And it's really just, stuff that I've talked about before, which, I've just spent a lot of time in the last, I don't know, 5 years or so. I've spent a lot of time on YouTube or listening to podcasts, or I've just spent so much time filling my brain with everyone else's thoughts that there wasn't room for my own anymore. And, it's been a long process that I've been talking to you guys about forever, but it's been a long process of me disconnecting from that so that I can find myself again, find my own thoughts again. I was looking for a visual representation of what I'm saying right now, which High Priestess is a good one. High Priestess and Two of Swords are really like what I need to get back to. Like, what do I believe? It's like I couldn't access it. It's like I didn't know what I believe anymore because I've spent so much time talking to other people and listening to other people and what they believe. And I think to a certain extent I needed to try some of those things on to see how they felt, because that's how I work. Fuck around and find out. I have to try things on to see what I believe. I have to go down the path of trying to believe something before I know if I believe in it. I have to go down the path of doing something before I know if I want to do it. That's just how I work. But it felt really empty at first. It was like I couldn't connect to anything spiritually. And I think I'm coming back to feeling in touch with spirituality again. I'm coming back to it, but I'm coming back to it on my own terms. And I really don't know what that looks like yet. I mean, I know I'm still going to be reading tarot for sure. That's been a part of my life since I was like 14, 15. Tarot's still going to be there. But a lot of stuff feels weird to me right now. Like doing readings for strangers feels weird to me right now. So I have hopefully temporarily shut down my tarot shop. So I am not doing, I mean, if you know me and I've done readings for you before and or we're friends, that's a different story. Like I'll still do readings for you. Just, ask me. But I'm not doing readings for strangers at the moment. And so, yeah, that was just a decision I made in like the second week of the month. And it felt right. I mean, I can always reactivate my shop if I change my mind. And I'm not against doing like pick-a-pile readings and stuff, even though I haven't done them in a long time. Like, I do still feel like that's something that I'm okay with doing. But when it comes to like consulting a stranger on the course of their life, and this is not a judgment on anybody that does that, because it can be so helpful, right? I mean, there's a reason that people read tarot for other people, but I just don't know if I'm qualified. Sometimes. I mean, when I do readings for friends, it feels different because I know a lot more context about their life and I can give them more mindful advice because I know the whole context. Whereas if a stranger comes to me and they want a reading, sometimes they don't tell me much and I could be so wrong. I mean, like, I don't know. So that was a thing that happened this month. Partially, I brought out this particular deck because I trimmed it and edged it this month as well. As per usual, I edge everything in olive green. Huge shout out to, I believe it's, oh my God, what's her name? Santa Muerte on a Harley, I think, is her YouTube name. She bought me this gorgeous set of markers. I believe it was her. I hope I'm not getting that wrong. This gorgeous set of markers that, like, basically anytime I want to edge a deck, I have all the colors that I could ever need. And most of the time I just choose this one. But anyway, I trimmed and edged it this month, and I've had this particular copy of Rider-Waite-Smith for like 2.5 years or so. I actually got it in person at a witchy shop in my town. Anyway, so that's something I did this month. One of the things I did to like occupy myself. I took a bunch of things off my walls. So those of y'all that have seen my channel for a while, like when I actually do face videos inside this room, you can see that like the walls are absolutely covered in like tarot cards, oracle cards, postcards, like art prints, like just shit everywhere. And it's still a lot. I went from having like maybe 80% of the wall covered to 60. So, you know, it's not cluttered in here. You know, it's not like I'm suddenly a minimalist. But I took a lot of things off the walls and actually pasted them into a sketchbook. And I'm just sort of starting to do that. Like, art that I appreciate doesn't necessarily have to be on the wall because there's only so much space. And I found that I actually, like, it's calming to me to have some space on walls. So, like, for example, the door to my little tarot closet, the bottom half of the door was completely covered. I took all of it off and replaced it with like a tie-dye cloth and an image of the goddess Kali. And that's it. So now the only things on the back of that door are my I Want to Believe poster and an image of Kali with a background of fabric, which is basically just to cover up all the fucking holes that I put in the door. Yeah, I mean, so I guess I'm not really saying anything profound here, but except just to say my first no buy month has been easy as far as the actual like challenge of not buying anything online. I also started to, so the other really influential book that I read this month is called The Hacking of the American Mind. I don't have the author in front of me, but it was by a neurobiologist who, apologies to all my patrons because I haven't shut the fuck up about this book for like 2 or 3 weeks. So you've heard all this. But it's by a neurobiologist who is talking about brain science and how to be happy. And the conclusion is there's dopamine and there's serotonin. Serotonin is sort of, it's the contentment, happiness chemical in your brain, and dopamine is the pleasure, the glitter inside your brain feeling that you get when you do an addictive behavior or when you're falling in love or, you know, something like that. And I think I did talk about that in my last video, but I hadn't read the book yet. And it was really eye-opening because, I mean, it's kind of hard to get through for me because it was an academic book, talking a lot about brain science in this book. But it was really good. Like, the actual information was really useful for me because it kind of laid out a recipe for happiness. You know, it was like things like community, conversation, contribution to society. Those are all things that genuinely make you happy. And also just getting your basic needs met. Like, you need to get 8 hours of sleep a night. You need to get some kind of form of exercise every day if you can. And another big part of the book, more than I was expecting, like I wasn't expecting the book to be about this, but a lot of the book was talking about added sugar in your diet, because this particular neurobiologist, again, I don't have his name in front of me, but this is one of his focuses, is like, you know, basically, you know, when it comes to like food and diet stuff, I think it's a crapshoot a lot of the time. You know, like throughout the course of just my 41 years on this planet, like people, you know, fat is good, fat is bad, sugar is good, sugar is bad, carbs are good, carbs are bad. Like, I feel like overall, we don't really know. The overall take is that, you know, everything in moderation, right? And depending on who you are, you have different needs. But I think the one indisputed thing is that added sugar is really bad for us, especially in the quantities that we are consuming it. So I really did, I mean, he had a lot of studies to back up everything he was saying in the book, whether it was about sugar or other brain stuff, right? So I think, even though this book was called The Hacking of the American Mind, it could have been called Here's the Scientific Recipe for Happiness, you know? And it was really interesting. And that part of the book talking about limiting sugar, I just got curious. Like, okay, so there's like a number. I don't know who came up with this number. I think it might be the World Health Organization, but I'm not totally sure, so don't quote me on that. But the general consensus is that as far as added sugars are concerned, a woman should not exceed 6 teaspoons in a day, and a man should not exceed 9. And so I just thought, okay, you know what? I'm going to start paying attention. I'm going to try to make sure I don't exceed that number. And I thought, when I had that thought, that I was already doing pretty good. You know, I definitely indulge in sweets. I have a sweet tooth, but overall, I don't eat a lot of sweets in a day. But I thought that I was pretty mindful about, like, you know, whenever I'm choosing like a cereal or something like that, I will look at the grams of sugar and I will make sure that that number is low. You know, whenever I'm deciding something to buy, I usually look at that. However, there are lots of things that I wasn't thinking about, such as bread or like salad dressings, or, you know, things like that that you wouldn't necessarily think have added sugar. Anyway, whole point is, I unexpectedly went down a path of like, now I'm limiting my sugar intake. And I had to make some big changes in my diet in order to make sure I wasn't exceeding that limit. And I'm only like a week in to doing that, but I already feel better. I feel like some mental fog is clearing. Some of that is just because, you know, I was like sick the first 2 weeks of January. So I'm coming out of that at the same time. But, so, you know, all of this shit is anecdotal, obviously. But I effectively cut my sugar intake probably down to a third what it was before, just by trying to hit that or stay under that recommended limit of 6 teaspoons a day, which roughly translates to 25 grams, since almost everything, like as far as nutrition facts, are listed in grams, at least in America. So that is an like unexpected change that I wasn't planning on making, but I hope that I stick to it, because I do think that sugar makes me feel like shit. I do. And it's, according to this guy that wrote that book, it's the cause of a lot of metabolic syndromes. So a lot of health issues can be avoided if you limit your added sugar intake. Now, I'm not demonizing fruit or anything like that. Like, I'm only looking at the added sugar part of the nutrition facts. I'm not limiting anything else. I'm still eating Cheetos. I'm still eating other junk foods. I'm not like over here saying I'm healthy all of a sudden. But I am doing that. And it has been really good for me so far. Again, I'm only a week in. But yeah, so there you go. That's what I've been doing this month. That was actually a big deal that I started, just to go back to the taking all the things off the walls and putting them in my sketchbook. Like, this particular sketchbook is one that I bought for myself like 2 years ago, and I collaged on one page back in 2022, did nothing with it in 2023. So it's nice to be doing things inside this book again. Let me see if there's a page that I can show you guys. I mean, it's nothing like pretty necessarily. Yeah, I'll just show you, because I don't want to get too personal with it, but I'll show you this page. This is just a piece of art that Michael made a long time ago. Just a collage. He used like cut paper to make the little lay around the ferret's neck. And there's a bunch of money at the bottom. So this is abundance right here. So I'll probably do some more work with that, but that was a thing that I took off the wall and put into this book. You know, like, and this was partially inspired by Grace, because she was telling me about kind of her approach to grimoires, and it made me think of like magpie grimoire. Just like, you know, letting go of my attachment to things looking really beautiful and perfect, and just throwing a bunch of shit. Like, anything I find to be beautiful, I'm gonna throw it in that sketchbook. And then maybe I'll write some words next to it. Maybe I'll write some lyrics next to it. Maybe I'll draw. You know, no pressure for any particular thing. I'm just gonna play with this notebook that I bought myself fully like 2 years ago. Possibly even I bought this for myself in 2021. It's possible. And I just didn't do anything with it until 2022. And then I just did that one page. So I don't know. But now it has like several pages. Like, you can hear the crackling of the pages because of all the glue, and, you know, I'm putting some thoughts in here, and yeah, which is very healing to me, because I had a sketchbook like this back in high school. It was a lot thicker than this, but it was generally like this, a bound book with just white pages in it. And it was this document of my life at the time, because I drew in it, my friends drew in it. And I guess this leads me to sort of like the heavy part of the video, which is So the reason that I have this card out, the effigy, I've been pulling this card a lot. This is from the Mirror Oracle by Amrit Brar. I've been pulling it a lot. And it's been reminding me of the person in my life that died this last month. It sort of sounds weird to say the person in my life because I hadn't actually seen him in over a decade. And this reminds me of him because he was cremated. Actually, I feel kind of weird talking about it. But I'll just say, there's a lot that I'm working through surrounding that, you know, grief being what it is. And it's also weirdly allowing me to reconnect with a lot of people that I haven't talked to in a really long time. And it's also part of the reason why I started playing with this sketchbook again as well, because this person was an ex of mine, and he actually was the person that destroyed that sketchbook from high school because he was mad at me. And that is like a thing that was very hurtful, obviously, and it fucked me up for a long time because I'm a very sentimental person. And yeah, I'm feeling weird now just saying anything about this. So I'll stop there. But yeah, so this month has been emotional. It's been like, obviously, like I said, I was sick, got sick like a couple days after Christmas and started to get better, but then hung out with some friends that I hadn't seen in a really long time, like literally years, and they were sick, and so then I got what they had, and so it's been a thing, and it's been bitter cold where I live as well this month, so it's just been a lot of time sort of sitting inside by the fire, reading. Oh, I retaught myself how to knit this month. I hadn't knit in like, I don't know, 5 or 10 years. And I had forgotten how. So I had to remind myself. Specifically, it was like such an organic, like, these are the type of things that I want to be spending more time doing. This is an example of something that went exactly how I wanted to go in my life this month. It was like fucking bitter cold, and in 2 days I knew that I was gonna have to go out into the world again, go back to work. I had been sick, it was fucking cold, and I realized I only have like 2 scarves. One was made by a friend that's more decorative than functional, and then there was one that I made for myself like, I don't know, 15 years ago, that is long and skinny. And it's made with like just basic yarn. When I like thicker, more organic yarn now than I used to be drawn to back then. So anyway, point is, I had a long skinny scarf and I wanted a short fat scarf. So, and I was in the house and it was bitter cold and I had a deadline. So I just used up materials that I already had in my house, retaught myself how to knit, which retaught myself how to knit means that I looked up some YouTube videos, of course, but retaught myself how to knit, and I made the scarf that I needed. I needed something that would cover my face, that would be short enough to tuck under my leather jacket, and protect my fucking face from the bitter cold. And because it doesn't always get that cold here, so, and I have really long hair, so I don't usually wear scarves. But it was just like a moment of like, I need a thing in 2 days, and then I made it, you know? And that leads me to, I guess, the way that I'll close this video out is about resourcefulness. And that is something that I am rediscovering at the beginning of my online no-buy, is resourcefulness. Because, you know, my life has become a lot simpler knowing that I can't buy things online. You know, so far it's been really joyful to tell myself no. It's like every time I start to think, well, I need this and that, well, what do I have in my house that I can make it with? And every time so far, I have been able to make do with what I have. And not just it doesn't feel like a deprivation make do. It feels like a joyful make do, you know? And if I need something, you know, like say this scarf situation had happened, except I didn't actually have any yarn in the house and I needed to go buy some, I would just go to one of the stores in my town and I would settle on whatever they have and it would be fine, you know, as opposed to like searching online for hours for the perfect yarn, you know. That is just a thing I don't want. It's just not fun. Searching for hours and hours and days to find the perfect something. Every once in a while, that's rewarding. If it's a big deal, something like my leather jacket, like that I got like 15 years ago, that I still wear every day in the winter. I did find that after like a 3-day weekend long search online. And it was the right thing. But that was a find it and move on with your life sort of situation. It's not like I started a leather jacket collection, you know what I mean? Anyway, that's an example that I've used a ton of times. But the point is, so far, I'm rediscovering my resourcefulness, and it's been really rewarding, you know, like, because there's not an option. There's not an option for me to paralyze my creativity by thinking that there's something else I need that I have to seek out before I can do the thing. It's like, okay, I want to do a thing. Here's what I got. I'm going to make it happen. You know, it's liberating. The limitations I've placed on myself feel liberating to me right now. So this is a document for my future self, because I know there's going to be some month this year where it's going to feel like deprivation, but I will have to remind myself of this resourcefulness and liberation that I'm feeling right now, because it's really satisfying. Like, running out of something is satisfying to me right now. Using things is satisfying to me right now. It's like, I think my relationship to my stuff was to the point where I was afraid to interact with it, because almost like I don't know what this is, but it was like I had made everything precious. Like, I didn't want to use a perfume because I might run out of it someday. I didn't want to burn a candle because eventually it was going to burn out. I didn't want to, it's like I was depriving myself of the things that I already had in favor, in order to, it's like the default was, I don't have something, I need to get something, even with the things that I already had inside my house. Does that make any sense? It's bananas is what it is. And now I'm just gleefully using the things that I have, and if the things that I have don't make me feel glee, then I let them go. I didn't do a lot of decluttering this month, though. I mean, that was something that I did a lot in 2023. And there's still things that I let go of when I need to, but it just happens more organically now. It's just like, when something is done, it's done, and I will put it in the DAV box, which is my thrift store. put it in the DAB box when it's time for it to be done. And yeah, I'm definitely taking things away right now. That's what I'm doing. Like, my life is getting smaller, my life is getting simpler and more minimalist, even though I don't identify as a minimalist. But I am realizing that when I take things away, 9 times out of 10, I don't miss them. This is something that I might have shared with you guys before, but there have been, I can't remember, there have been some Oracle decks in particular that I let go of a few months ago that were ones that I used on a regular basis, but there were like personal reasons that I let them go. And it was personal reasons attached to the specific item that I had. So at the time I was letting those things go, I thought to myself, oh yeah, I'll rebuy these like probably in a few months or something. And it won't have the associations that it had for me before. Like, specifically, there were 2 Oracle decks that were given to me by someone that I just had shitty associations with the particular items that I had in my home. But the actual Oracle decks themselves were ones that I used all the time. It was just the specific copy that I had that I wanted to let go of. So I let go of them fully assuming that I was going to rebuy them, but I have not felt an urge to rebuy them. And the reason I'm telling this story is because those things, there are more things in my life anyway that I think I'm attached to, but if they were actually gone, I'd realize I'm not that attached to them. And just knowing that has been eye-opening to me. You know, like, I haven't actually done it, but I really think I could be okay with like 5 or 10 tarot decks and 5 or 10 Oracle decks, you know? And something else has been, I guess this is relevant for sure. Something else has been really interesting. You know, in the past, because of my shopping addiction issues, like when friends talk about decks or when I see people talking about decks in videos or whatever, I would get really tempted, you know? And lately, it's like a switch has been flipped. Like, people talk about things that are coming out, even friends sharing with me things that they're excited about. I, can share in that excitement with them as far as like, they're really enjoying a thing right now. But it doesn't make me want it. And that is new for me. Like, I'm very easily able to be like, yeah, don't want that, don't want that, don't want that. Like, nothing looks interesting to me right now. I went into a bookstore yesterday in my town that has a pretty robust tarot and oracle shelf. Like, it's pretty big. They have a lot of stuff. And it all looks stupid to me right now. I'll refrain from giving examples just in case it ends up being something that you really love. But it's just, everything was like, wow, this is dumb. I don't want this. Oh, this is really dumb. I definitely don't want that. Oh my God, I would enjoy this for about 10 minutes and then I'd be over it. It's just, I don't want right now. And that is awesome. Yeah. That is a really good thing. I guess that's it. This has been a lot more scattered than I wanted it to be, so but I do want to be committed to like at least once a month sharing my progress on my online no-buy, because it is my main thing that I'm concentrating on this year. And I also, now that I've added this sort of like sugar limitation, I might even talk about that occasionally. Yeah, just report back as far as like, am I feeling better? So far, so this always happens to me, like when I cut back sugar, because I've done it before in my life. One of the first things I notice is that my mouth tastes better. Just like the general feeling in my gums, I guess, is what it is. It's probably just that my gums are slightly healthier, because I do kind of have issues with my gums. They are very thin, and it's possible that I will need some kind of grafting surgery at some point to reinforce my gums. But that is something that I definitely feel like, at the very least, sugar is bad for me because it cuts up my gums, you know? I can feel it when it's like Christmas time and I'm eating a lot more sweets. Like, my gums will feel cut up. So that is the first like health benefit that I've noticed. It's not like I'm cutting out sugar. I'm just cutting back. That's all. And even that has been, so far, really great. So I hope that I keep that up, because I think that's actually really good for me. So anyway, I will report back on that. I'll report back on all of this, but thank you guys for watching. Oh my God, 51 minutes. We're still burning the incense though. The incense is not done. That's my time marker. If the incense burns out, I know I've talked too long. Okay. Thank you guys for being here, and how are you doing? How was your January? How was your Capricorn season? Let me know. Okay, bye.